Welcome to the Coast to Coast podcast, brought to you by Play Picks and the Lines. Coming to you from the West Coast, Josh Lander, joined by my guy Nate Weitzer on the East Coast. And we are looking at another Wednesday night slate here in the NBA playoffs. A couple of game twos we got going on here. 76ers look to try to climb back down 1-0 in Miami in game two. That's where we'll kick things off here before we get into that Western Conference game. Make sure you do like and subscribe to that page. Continue to follow along with us. We are bringing you each and every playoff game here, as well as those player props we love to bring you as well. Make sure you do check out playpicks.com as well. I want to make sure you guys are seeing all the great work Nate and company are putting up there on the site, everything you need NBA playoffs, and even got into the baseball season here as well. So definitely want to head over to playpicks.com, check that stuff out. Want to head to thelines.com. Make sure you're shopping the lines out there with our props tool and odds checker. Make sure you're getting the best juice available from the odds makers out there. And as always, if you do still need a FanDuel or DraftKings account, head to fdpicks.com or dkpicks.com. Find those listings in your area, such as what we've got for game twos. Nate, let's get into it.
Yeah, Wednesday game twos after a couple of pretty handily good wins from the home teams here. Miami -9 at home. That total is 207, only slightly lower than game one. And then the Suns Mavs, which had a way more points than we were expecting, than the numbers would indicate. But I think I'm ready to reverse course on that theory. Suns are -6 at home, and that total is only up a little bit to 216.5. We'll get to that game in a minute, though. Looking at Philly and Miami, and yeah, we talked about Miami not scoring a ton in the first half, but I wish I had the balls to talk about the Sixers covering in the first half. They actually were up a point in the first half just because of that whole – I mean, we talked about the stars out guy and the role players coming out with renewed focus, renewed energy, and they did that. Harden, Maxey, Tobias Harris especially had a spike game. And they actually were in it. And then with, a couple Eric Spoelstra adjustments and those three guys wearing down from a fatigue standpoint, and it was ugly down the stretch. They got outscored 56-41 in the second half, shot 3 for 17 from three. I mean, they were awful from three throughout the entire game, so that's right on pace. But Harden then, after a good first half, 4 points, 2 assists, 2 turnovers, only took 4 shots in the second half. This has kind of been a theme for him in terms of game two at Toronto. He had 0 points in the second half, along with 3 turnovers. And he's really having trouble scoring at all against PJ Tucker, his teammate of many years, who seems to know exactly how to avoid fouling him. And there were a couple calls that Harden got where he used the ball as a weapon, basically, and pushed PJ off, and then somehow got the call, and Miami incensed about it. But Philly somehow, they shot more free throws than the Heat. They got that benefit, and they still weren't able to hang this game down the stretch. Yeah, there's obviously a strong correlation between the Heat playing great defense and winning these playoff games. They held the Hawks under 100 points 3 times, actually struggled to close defensively against the Hawks with like a 120 defensive rating in those games in the fourth quarter. But against this Sixers team, which has fewer options, really, I mean, without Embiid, they had a 91 defensive rating in that fourth quarter. Just really took everything away from Harden. Maxey still had 9 points in the second half, but not playmaking. And there's just not much around those guys to match with the Heat. And then defensively, the Sixers, with those 3 guys tired, they had to go to a zone at times, and that's when the game blew wide open. Tyler Hero raining down on them. Bam got anything he wanted with no Embiid out there. They might have to start Paul Reed and not DeAndre Jordan. I mean, not even go with that facade, as DeAndre might be washed at this point. But this is what Miami does. Excellent rebounding edge in game one, 52 points, 15 offensive rebounds, just being the more physical, tougher team, especially at home. So we don't like 9-10 point spreads here on the Coast to Coast show. There's other ways to bet this, to talk about Miami's dominance and to talk about the pacing of the game. I'm still doubling down on Miami under 55.5 in the first half, because I think they're that kind of pride. It's Kentucky Derby season already, where they're that kind of long-winded horse that saves a lot for the final furlong, and they're not going to come out and blow all their energy in the first half. These two teams do play very slow when they play against each other. It was 93 pace in game one, right? Yeah. And Miami got to 50 points in that first half. So I like unders there. I think you can consider, again, the Sixers to be +5 at the half to hang around a little bit. And if that's the case, maybe there's a live betting angle for Miami where you don't have to take them -8.5 here for them to win. But yeah, I mean, if you want to adjust the spread, tease it down to 5 or just buy a couple points here, I don't have any problem with it. I think, if it was 7 like it was game one, I think we feel pretty confident that Miami's going to pull away at some point here. Without Embiid, the Sixers are, it's really, they can just throw up their hands and be like, well, our season got screwed here. And they just don't really have much of a chance against this solid Heat squad, it seems.
Very solid. Yeah, very solid. And I mean, I'll just start real quick and then get off of the point. But yeah, Eric Spoelstra versus Doc Rivers is a huge advantage for the Heat. There's not that often in the NBA where stars are win championships, that a coach is going to bring you an edge to this degree. But I mean, Spoelstra's not even doing that much compared to Doc doing absolutely nothing and starting DeAndre Jordan and playing him 4 minutes in the first quarter. That's the quarter that they lost right away. Then he doesn't play in the second quarter. They outscore the Heat by 9. It's not that. It's a direct correlation here, man. The guy is too old to be playing defense in the playoffs at this point, especially against a center like Bam Adebayo, who's not a bang it out center and someone that DeAndre Jordan has any chance of staying in front of. So that's the first thing. The other adjustment that was or was not made in any way is the fact that, well, I'm sorry, I guess I should say Spo figured it out with Harden. To your point that you were making to me, Harden, they figured out how to guard Harden as the game went on. But that also is because they changed who guarded Harden as the game went on. Because at first he was doing some work, when guys like Danny Green or Tyler Hero were covering him. And then they went ahead and changed that and switched Jimmy Butler back onto him for a bit as well. Then they brought Caleb Martin in as well to make sure, and he came in and did a very, very good job on him as well as with guarding Tyrese Maxey. So yeah, Gabe Vincent in, Duncan out. You've also got Oladipo now taking up Duncan's minutes and a bunch of other backup guards that they were having to play for a while at this point. So right now there's no weak point on any point of the Heat's defense, and that's really where you start and kind of end this conversation without Embiid in there. There's no X factor for them to sort of bring in terms of Philly and feel like you can impact the defense the way that it is. I mean, Gabe Vincent, like I was saying, came in, especially when he guarded Maxey in about 5.5 minutes, had an individual defensive rating around 103. And then you're talking about Max Strus actually had a defensive rating of 82 as well, getting plenty of time on Harden. I mean, they had a 97.9 defensive rating as a team, playing at that 93 pace. So yeah, not surprisingly, they're going to keep Philly to under 100 in that scenario. And I think, Maxey and Harden combining for the poor performances that they did from 3, maybe you think they regress a little bit, but like, come on, man, this is the Heat's defense. This isn't some fluky thing. They're not giving up any of those threes because they don't have to. There's nobody else. When you get into the lane against them at this point, Bam is able to handle either of those guys. James Harden, like you said, is just resorting to just sort of hitting the PJ Tucker in the head with the ball at this point, who also was 2 for 4 from 3 in the corner, was PJ, which you're going to continue to get. So honestly, I love the sort of substitutions that Spo made in terms of playing Gabe Vincent a lot more, knowing that Max Strus is one of his better wing defenders, on top of obviously still giving you that 3-point shooting that you lose when Duncan goes to the bench. And yeah, if Philly's going to try to resort to a zone, God, good luck against Tyler Hero, especially, who loves playing against zones and just cuts them up. And that's what he did in this game. And he was, I believe he was about plus 280 to be leading scorer in this game, which was a pretty good bet. Maxey had it for a while. And then, like we said, they switched a couple guys like Caleb Martin onto him. And it all stopped working for Philly at that point. So I continue to lean under. I do like your Miami unders in the first half. That's exactly what happened in this game. Once they took DeAndre Jordan out, then they were able to play defense against the Heat. And I think you continue to like that, but you continue to like this Heat defense, especially if you don't see Embiid in this series. I'm going to continue to field unders in this series, and definitely for that Philly team total.
Yeah, I wouldn't hate it, even though it's 98.5 points taking the under there. Like I said, yeah, they held Atlanta under that 3 times. And it's not a coincidence that Atlanta has the highest turnover rate in these playoffs so far, and that they shut down Trae Young, who frankly at this stage in his career is a lot tougher to defend than James Harden. I mean, and unlike the Bucks, who will just pick who they want to let shoot threes, Miami also gives up, I think, the second most threes per game. It's because there's nothing else you can get, right? It's because you're taking these tough step backs. You're taking contested shots. They're so good at denying penetration. It's like a freaking accordion where they just come in and then it's either a turnover or you're kicking it out. And then all of a sudden they're back out there contesting three. And the quality of looks, I don't think it's a fluke that they went 6 for 34 from three. I mean, Philly's also a terrible 3-point shooting team.
Yeah.
If they're not going to play Korkmaz or Danny Green more, then they won't be able to really get some much positive aggression there. And I don't think they can play many of those guys for extended minutes. So, yeah, I mean, 98.5, very low, but -110 still to the under, tempting some odds. I think, you can look at the series odds at this point too, and think, we don't know if Embiid's going to be back for game 3 or 4 yet, and Miami in 5 at +200 or 6, maybe the series spread is what.
Yeah, well, interesting there is that they were -330 before game 1 was Miami. They only went down to -500. They're the 1 seed and they're up 1-0, but there's that looming does Joel Embiid come back in game 3 sort of scenario that I think keeps these odds at -500. But normally they'd probably be closer to -650, -7 after a 1-0 lead for the Heat in this scenario.
Yeah, but I mean, struggling close out Toronto with Embiid. I mean, he still has torn ligaments in his thumb, even once he's cleared to play. Like, yeah, it's hard to imagine him just completely changing the series.
Agreed.
To do more than steal a game or two. So, yeah, I think you can think about ways for Miami to advance here, betting that. But for game 2, yeah, I mean, without Embiid, they scored just under 106 per game. Their 3-point percentage dropped 5 percentage points to 32%. Like I'm saying, they can't get any quality looks because they can't get those double teams. Yep. And that's going to be poison against this Miami defense that just loves to say, all right, you got to funnel into the lane. We know exactly what to do with you once you're in there.
Yep. Yeah, and that's why I think, look, Tobias is someone you might see continue to shine. Like I said, once they put Jimmy Butler on Tobias a little bit later after he was cooking, that helped a lot, especially in that fourth quarter where Jimmy spent the majority of his time on him. But I still think at the same time, you're going to continue. This is a matchup for Tobias in the sense that, like you said, normally the 76ers they're either getting open threes or they're getting, good drives to the lane because the defense is off balance because they double team Joel. And when he passes out of it, they've got to scatter back, right? But there's none of that now. So the only guys that you really look at this point that can beat their own guy off the dribble or be bigger than their guy is Tobias Harris, who's bigger than the guy guarding him usually, and at least able to get his shot off against most defenders in a slower half court setting. And then you got Tyrese Maxey, who can blow by guys even if they're not sort of scrambling to get back to him. That's it. That's it. That's the extent of your playmaking. James Harden has proven he's not getting by guys now at this point. And when he does, he's inefficient and still he has nobody to pass off to in a dunker spot or anything of that nature right now. So there's just not much help on offense for Philly right now. And that's why you continue to feel good about Miami, about unders. And if you don't like 8.5 in game 2, like I don't, I think you'll get some spunk from Philly. One other bet I would say before we move on is just for neither team to lead wire to wire is -104. I like the way you're talking about that first half being a lot closer. It's going to be back and forth more with Philly, at least bringing it early on, I think. And as a result, you can get pretty much even money for neither team to lead from start to finish in this one.